नमस्कार। आज संडे 30 अक्टूबर 2022 को इस डॉक्टर के HCFI हार्ट केयर फाउंडेशन ऑफ इंडिया की इस राउंड टेबल एक्सपर्ट ग्रुप एनवायरनमेंट में हमारे सभी एक्सपर्ट मेंबर्स का और जो DR के अग्रवाल के यूट्यूब फेसबुक पेज से, डॉक्टर के अग्रवाल के यूट्यूब फेसबुक पेज से लोग जुड़े हुए हैं और जो उसको लेटर ऑन भी वॉच करें, उनका सबको स्वागत है। और ये राउंड टेबल जैसा मैंने पहले ही बता चुका हूँ कि नवंबर से इसको 2 साल हो जाएंगे। हम करीब ऑलमोस्ट कोशिश करते हैं कि एवरी संडे ये हमारी 1 घंटे की 12 से 1 की जो राउंड टेबल है। नमस्कार विवेक जी।
नमस्कार।
तो ये राउंड टेबल हमारी डिफरेंट सब्जेक्ट पे हम लेते हैं एनवायरनमेंट के, स्टार्ट फ्रॉम दी मे बी एयर पोल्यूशन, वाटर पोल्यूशन, नॉइज पोल्यूशन, वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट, क्लाइमेट चेंज, ग्रीनरी एंड ऑल वेरियस डिफरेंट इश्यूज। और जो भी इंटरनेशनली नेशनली जो एटलीस्ट रिपोर्ट्स होती हैं, जो इवेंट्स होते हैं, उन पे हम कुछ करते हैं। ये अपडेट इस पे रखा जाए, सब हमारे एक्सपर्ट मेंबर के जो उनके साथ में हम डिस्कस करते हैं। तो आज का हमारा जो टॉपिक है, ये अभी फोर्थ-कमिंग इवेंट होने जा रहा है, यूनाइटेड नेशंस क्लाइमेट चेंज कॉन्फ्रेंस है। ये जो यूनाइटेड नेशन फ्रेमवर्क कन्वेंशन ऑन क्लाइमेट चेंज का, ये बेसिकली अभी 6 नवंबर से 18 नवंबर को इजिप्ट में होने जा रहा है। उस पर सबने ये रखा हुआ है। तो टॉपिक का है फोर्थ-कमिंग UN क्लाइमेट चेंज कॉन्फ्रेंस, UNFCCC COP27। जैसा कि हमारे व्यूअर्स भी जानते हैं और हम लोगों ने पहले इस पे भी वर्क किया कि COP26 जो हो ग्लासगो में हुई थी लास्ट नवंबर में, और उसी के कंटिन्यूएशन में ऑलमोस्ट ये जो कॉन्फ्रेंस होती है, बट आई थिंक पैंडेमिक वजह से कुछ थोड़ा सा 1-2 साल ये इवेंट नहीं हो पाया। सो द 27th सेशन ऑफ द कॉन्फ्रेंस ऑफ पार्टी COP27 दिस ऑफ द UNFCCC विल बी हेल्ड इन दी शर्म एल शेख, जो है इजिप्ट में एक जगह शर्म एल शेख जो है उसमें इजिप्ट में, from 6 November to 18 November 2022. So COP27 will build on the outcome of the COP26 to deliver.
मटर महंगी करता जा रहा है 25 वाले से 60 रुपए।
धन्यवाद जी, आप म्यूट कर लें जरा। COP27 will help build on the outcome of COP26 to deliver action on the array of issue critical to tackling the climate emergency, like urgently reducing greenhouse gas emissions, building resilience and adapting to the inevitable impact of the climate change, to delivering on the commitment to finance climate actions in developing countries. ये सब actions जो COP26 में डिस्कस हुए थे, उसी का एक further actions on the COP27 will be discussed and be taken there. So faced with the growing energy crisis, और अभी after the Ukraine-Russia war, तो हमने सभी देखा कि energy crisis going to particularly यूरोप में, और people are coming back to the coal. तो हमने जो भी अभी gain किया, so we are losing that. So faced with the growing energy crisis, record greenhouse gas concentrations and increasing extreme weather events. We have seen the like heat waves, floods and the forest fires, etc. Even in particularly अभी यूरोप में भी किस तरह से extreme this events हुए, और जो hot summer जो है, heat waves and the floods also various part of including India also we have seen all over world. इंडिया में भी बहुत जगह particularly जो मानसून पीरियड में on the different event अक्टूबर तक जो है ये जो इवेंट नहीं होता था, it is like in the month of October we have seen that. And this particularly COP27 seeks renewed solidarity between countries to deliver on the landmark Paris Agreement for people and the planet. So we must unite to limit greenhouse global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius and work hard to keep the 1.5 degree target alive. जो हमने एक COP26 में ये था कि we have to जो ultimately 1.5 degree target, so we have to achieve that, but at least 2 degree should be there below 2 degree. This requires bold and immediate actions and raising ambitions from all parties, in particular those who are in a position and do so, and those who can, at least we can, they can make efforts on it. Such ambitious transformative actions provide the paradigm shift for more sustainable, climate resilient, and low emissions and carbon neutral future ahead on the science and based on the science and जो principles. Because हमने न्यूट्रल का कार्बन न्यूट्रलिटी का कमिटमेंट किया है 2050 by all other countries and India 2070, but it's very challenging seeing the current scenario. So implementation requires input and contribution from all stakeholders, governmental and non-governmental, in a very very serious way. अगर जो हमारा यही कहते हैं कि रवैया हम कहते रहा, चाहे वो गवर्नमेंट में देखते हैं हमें, it's not going to work. जो हमने जो कमिटमेंट्स हैं जो हमारे COP26 में किए and जो we plan for COP27 is not going to work until unless we are all are very serious that. In this conference, going to be different thematic days, including the Finance Day, Science Day, Youth and Future Generation Day, Decarbonization Day, Adaptation and Agriculture Day, Gender Day, Africa Day, Water Day, As and Civil Society Day, Energy Day, Biodiversity Day, Solutions Day, and these going to be on different days. जो हमारा 6 to 18th में between, particularly start from the 7th onwards, जो और 17th तक ये different days जो है चलेंगे. And we need to focus seeing that कि जो भी अब discussion होगा based on the agenda, because international leaders going to be there, and all different stakeholders, NGO and activists all will be there. But we have to work on the sustainable principle and features, that the use of renewable energy, particularly focus on the solar power, though India is the leader of the International Solar Alliance. Then energy efficiency issues we have to take very seriously. E-mobility and sustainable and smart transport system, water use and conservation, adopting a proper waste management processes like including recyclable, environmental friendly alternative to plastic products and paper use, sustainability dimension in procurement, construction materials, supply chain, etc. So these are the various issues we need to take as a very serious way. Otherwise, the all different in the series, whatever the COP, maybe different COP in COP26 will be the COP27, or ultimately हम every year going to be the 7. So ये will discuss with our experts कि हमारे उनके क्या views हैं. और आज मैं चाहूंगा कि विवेक जी हमारे जो ट्रस्टी हैं HCFI के, मैं उनसे कि हमारे एक्सपर्ट्स मेंबर्स को आप जस्ट एक इंट्रोडक्टरी अपना एक व्यूज इस पे देने की कोशिश करें, और एक HCFI के जो ये विजन मिशन है पर्टिकुलरली एनवायरनमेंट और पब्लिक हेल्थ पे फोकस है, तो मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा सबसे पहले विवेक कुमार जी से, और वो भी बिकॉज कुछ कमिटमेंट वजह से वो बीच में कुछ नहीं आ पाए, तो अर्जेंट कमिटमेंट्स थे, तो उनके मैं विवेक कुमार जी से रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा. ओवर टू विवेक कुमार जी.
Namaskar to all the participants. Thank you so much for continuing this, and especially to Dr. Anil Kumarji. Unfortunately, 2 mahine tak, because of some personal family matters, it became very difficult for me to participate even on Sunday in these meetings, because I was very busy in certain personal commitments. The thing is, the environment has become an issue across the world, and every citizen today who is living on earth is suffering. For example, you take Europe. Europe has had a drought. And if you take India, especially like I'm living in Bangalore. In Bangalore, we have had the highest rainfall ever recorded. And I'm sure most of you have read in the news that in Bangalore, this place is flooded and that place is flooded. All these things have been highlighted. So this has become a very serious issue. Either we are getting excess rain in some area, or we are getting drought in another area. Now, today I was just reading, Delhi is so polluted that the AQI level today in Delhi is about 440, 450. Now, that kind of air, if people are going to breathe, imagine what impact that is going to have on our health. Now, because of the Ukrainian-Russian war, it is going to be another major problem because gas is not available. Most of the plants in Europe had shifted to gas because it was less polluting. Now they will go back to thermal. That is, they will start using coal again. And because of using coal again, which even India is reconsidering, we are going to have more sulfur, more AQI level of pollution in the air. It is not, and I was very surprised that the top 10 most polluted cities in India are not Delhi or any of our metropolitan cities. There are some of the very smaller towns where the air pollution is much higher. And it is not just the air pollution, it is also we have to consider about the water pollution, we have to consider about sound pollution. And unless we don't move towards sustainability and we as a group from HCFI highlight continuously to the government that they have to work upon it, it's going to be very difficult. And my humble request is that we have to constantly write letters to the government of India that they need to take action for taking care of the citizens, and that is the primary aim of HCFI, how to coordinate health with pollution. Thank you.
थैंक यू विवेक जी, थैंक यू सो मच। विवेक जी हमारे HCFI के डॉक्टर के HCFI हार्ट केयर फाउंडेशन इंडिया के ट्रस्टी हैं और ये डॉक्टर के अग्रवाल जी के सर के बहुत क्लोज रहे और आज एनवायरनमेंट का पर्टिकुलरली हमका बहुत मोटिवेशन हम लोगों के लिए रहता है। ऑलवेज जो है एनवायरमेंट इशू पे हमको बहुत इंकरेज करते हैं, हम भी रेगुलर डिस्कशन होता है उनसे सर से। तो थैंक यू विवेक जी। नाउ आई विल रिक्वेस्ट टू पार्थोस त्यागी जी सर तो आज के जो इस पे सब्जेक्ट पे उनके व्यूज एंड देन आई विल रिक्वेस्ट अजय राघव जी आज ज्वाइन किया मिनिस्ट्री से आफ्टर दी पार्थोस त्यागी सर।
Thank you, Dr. Anil Kumar. My greetings to all. All of us are very conscious of the environmental conditions in Delhi. And this discussion of the subject today is on COP27. And it is naturally linked to COP26 and the Paris Agreement. Thing is, it's not a question of performance so much as of attitude. And wherever politicians take part, it becomes very difficult to control their attitude. Parali is an example right in our front. The attitude towards Parali 1 year ago and the attitude towards Parali this year is known to all of us. So that way, I think the trouble with these COPs is that those who participate are having clouded minds, have vested interests, and have very good control on language. So they say a lot without committing anything. So that way, I am somewhat disappointed that other than giving a chance to quite a large number of people, particularly in Glasgow, the outcome is just a beautiful text. And very often it is quite vague, and very often it is not translated into actionable details. Monitoring is another area which is very difficult to manage. Unless the monitoring is done on the same scale with comparable instruments, monitoring data can mean nothing. So it is the problem that all countries are not equipped equally well. And moreover, there are, as I said, interests which require the data to be either suppressed or even manipulated. But very often, suppression of data is not so much of dishonesty because you have said nothing which is not true. But at the same time, the conclusions drawn from the remaining data are different from facts. So these are certain disappointing things that will be there, present there even this time. And the change of heart very difficult to take place. If change of heart could take place, Ukraine war would have ended long back. Nobody is gaining from it except those who are manufacturing and selling their products and are interested in seeing that both Ukraine and Russia become weaker. So that way, I think this next meeting is also going to be interesting to observe. And then, like everybody else, will forget until the meeting next to that takes place. Apart from that, I am not so well informed as to give data and evaluate. But I just mentioned the sort of environment that exists before the meeting and has continued to exist. It is like Delhi's pollution continues to exist. So with these rather disappointing words, let me take leave of you, and we look forward to what is the view of the Ministry of Environment and Forest through its expert.
Thank you, sir. And actually, it's not some you telling the fact sometimes, because this is the mostly is to the events. What I mean, COP26 also, what we committed, what we are doing, implementing, and particularly the issue with the climate finance. Because unless we are not supporting the developing country, we cannot be globally achieve that agenda, whatever the even 2 degree, 1.5 degree. We cannot, because we are not, the first issue comes of survival. The developing country, first their priority is to survival for maybe for the food, maybe for energy, for anything. Later on, they will think, poor person, what will think? We all survive for 1 day, then will think for 10 days that. So I think these things internationally, globally, whatever the commitment being done, it should be the climate finance is the main issue, unless you're not funding the particular projects, which is the sustainable project, or for maybe for energy, or maybe for food production. So reducing the greenhouse gases is not going to work there. So thank you, sir. Now I'll request the Ajay Raghav-ji, who is from Ministry of Environment, Forest, and working in the subject. So Ajay ji will like to listen to your expert views.
Thank you, Anil ji, for giving opportunity to me. In fact, I just came to listen to what is happening. I am not a very regular on this. So unfortunately, I have been actually working on something. So I thought that this is, in fact, there's a missed call from my additional secretary, says, why you're not picking up my call? So just now. So I said that I am in a meeting. So anyway, so first of all, good morning to all, and thank you, and my good wishes to all the participants, especially to our respected Paritosh Tyagi sir. I think I have learned a lot from him, and over the years, and what he just said is actually absolutely true and summarizes the general sentiment on the climate change affairs, which is currently in the world. On the coming back to the subject specifically, this is the 27th Conference of Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. We all know that the UNFCCC came into existence subsequent to the Rio Summit in 1992. The UNFCCC came into force in 1994. And we are having these annual meetings towards the end of the year since beginning, except for the 2020, when it could not happen because of the pandemic. We all know that the last summit was in Glasgow, 26th conference in UK, under the presidency of the United Kingdom. Now the presidency passes on to the Asia Pacific region, the Africa region, and Egypt is going to host. So there is a presidency which will now be held by Egypt. And presidency do have some role because they set up the agenda, they gives the priority, which are the important things to be discussed. We all should know that the UNFCCC process has been quite disappointing because, as has been mentioned, that we come out with very good text, which are negotiated by the negotiators continuously for days and nights without any stop. And I have witnessed this last year also. This year also I'm going after 4 days as part of the Indian delegation. But apart from this, we have to see that a lot of action has to happen outside the UNFCCC framework. This is a very boring, I would say, forums where we are struggling to find good words. But basically the sentiment is, and we all are aware of it, that the developed countries who are mainly responsible for the climate change has not come up with their commitments. Neither commitments in reducing their own emissions, nor giving technology and finance to the developing countries. So these are decisions which are there, but what we are doing is that we are postponing the problem. We had certain commitments under the Kyoto Protocol. They were not met in the first commitment period by 2012. We had the second commitment period ending in 2020. And now we used to have the agenda items on pre-2020 commitments. Now 2020 has gone without any commitments being met by the developed countries. Now we have a new agenda called the pre-2030 commitments. So what we are doing is we are basically shifting the problem and giving one excuse or another. There was excuse of COVID, now the excuse of the ongoing conflict. So what we are seeing is that they have way of only preaching to the others but not doing themselves. The main agenda is that the developing countries who have a lot of development deficits, we have 1 billion people who are below poverty line in the world. Out of that, maybe 1/4 maybe in India. We have extreme hunger problem. So these populations, vulnerable populations, are also vulnerable to climate change because the development is the best defense to adaptation. If you are not developed, then you will be the most vulnerable. You will be living on the streets. You will be vulnerable to floods. You will be vulnerable to heat stroke and so on. So the same impact, same intensity of extreme events which happen in US or in Africa will have different, you can say, the impacts. It is all because of the development. So one has to realize that the development is an essential part. The developing countries cannot be denied their right to develop. When the developed countries were having increased industrialization and urbanization, there were no rules, regulations, no acts, no treaties. They have burned the whole coal of the whole world from the colonies for last 200 years. So coming to India, what we have seen that we have a population of 17% global population, but our historical GHG emissions has been only 4%. So what climate change, and this is not what we are saying, this is the IPCC reports which have now recognized. They have first time recognized that the whole problem is because of the global carbon budget. So if we are not able to have the fair share of global carbon budget, then these problems will persist. So global carbon budget, which is basically will determine whether we are going to reach 1.5 or 2 degree, or what the current NDC synthesis report just brought out 2 days back says 2.8. So these are the present commitments which the countries have given, that if implemented fully, that is also a big if, fully implemented, then the global temperature will reach 2.8. So these extreme events which we are seeing now are only resultant of 1.1 degree, which we have reached right now. And 1.1 is because of the concentration of 415 or more of ppm of CO2 in the global atmosphere. So unlike the air pollution problem which we are facing in North India and Delhi, this is a global problem. So that is why the countries come together under the aegis of the United Nations, that every country has to come together. So it is not merely India has to take burden of the whole world. We have already had very little emissions, but notwithstanding that, we are not saying that we are not going to do anything. We have done a lot in climate action. Our actions speak of it. We are among the fastest growing renewable energy sector in the world. There is a lot of investment which is coming in the other sectors, like the green hydrogen mission. We have very high emissions on the other sources. We are also doing a lot of research in the carbon capture, utilization and storage. So there are a lot of transitions which are happening in transport sector, whether in terms of the freight corridors or public transportation. So there are and electric vehicles. So these are some of the initiatives which the government has taken. We have also done a number of things in the energy efficiency, whether it is leapfrogging to the LED lighting and all. So these are results which we can showcase, and many countries have appreciated. That is why the UN Secretary General also came to India recently for launching of the lifestyles, the life. Unless and until there is a public participation of all the global citizens, it is basically the climate change problem is a problem of consumption. So if we are able to convince the people that we reduce the consumption, then this problem is not going to help. In US, the cities are designed in such a way that you have to take out car. You don't have a neighborhood market or so. So for anything, you have to travel a lot. So these countries, the developed countries, have almost 30% emissions coming from the transport sector, which is a very important sector. I'm talking about the greenhouse gas emissions. Whereas in India, it is around 9.7 right now, which is also increasing, but we have to see that public transportation and other means helps to reduce that emissions. So there are a number of steps which these countries have to take. They also have to give the finance, because we have done whatever we are doing from our own resources. So even if the renewable energy has to be set up, there is a lot of upfront cost. They may not have much of O&M cost, but a lot of investment has to happen now. And similarly, there are a number of conventional sources of energy which have very long drawn investments. So those also have to be seen that they phase out in a timely manner. Now, coming back to I would like to end within 2-3 minutes. Coming back to the COP27 agenda, these are specifically, there are few agendas which will be, I think, flashpoints. And one of the flashpoint will be in which there will be a lot of contentious issues, will be on the loss and damage finance facility. you know that the loss and damage creeps in because of climate change when it crosses the limits of adaptation. We are seeing that there are losses because of the extreme weather events all over the world, and there are damages which are permanent in nature. So, so loss and damage has been identified in the Paris Agreement, although it was not emphasized in such a manner in which the developing countries would have. What we are seeing is that the United States specifically was very adamant in Paris to say that there will not be any Paris Agreement if you have any compensation liability on the loss and damage on the other developing loss and damage on the developed countries. So they were not willing to pay anything which has happened because of the loss and damage because of the climate change in the past, because they thought that they will be flooded by a lot of requests from the developing countries because of the damages the climate change has happened, and United States being the largest historical emitter. So there was insertion of para 52 of 1 CP21. So this is the decision in the Paris Agreement cover decision that there will not be any finance liability arising out of the loss and damage from the climate change. So they managed to add this, that whatever you do, but we will not be liable to any compensation because of this. Now, in last 5-6 years, there have been a lot of pressures from the developing country and civil society and NGOs. And in the recent discussions in the Bonn in June, so there has been a momentum towards creating this loss and damage finance facility. So this is a new agenda item which will be introduced and discussed. This is already there in the COP agenda, and Africa group, which is hosting this COP 27, is going to forcefully put for this. So we will see a lot of arguments on this agenda item, which is going to be there. Then there are other agenda items which are continuing from previous. One of them is also the global stock take. This we have agreed in the Paris Agreement that there will be global stock take every 5 years. So the next global stock take is coming up in 2023. Now, this is important in terms of evaluating the commitments and the actions of the developed countries in terms of how much they have reduced their own emissions and given their funds. You know that in 2009, we all agreed that there will be $100 billion every year from developed to developing country, and that commitment is far from any result, because we developing countries are not receiving that amount of finance. And there is also a lot of argument in terms of discussion on the definition of climate finance. So many times the ODA funds which the developed countries give bilaterally and multilaterally, they are also counted as the climate finance. So there is many times anything which they give for poverty reduction, World Bank is giving for road construction, hydroelectric power plants, and so on. They are also dubbed as climate finance many times. So there is a lot of discussion on the definition of climate finance. This is an ongoing discussion which is happening. So this is a contentious issue. Again, developed countries come out with some of their own reports saying that we have already given $83 billion this year and so on. Whereas our estimate says, Finance Ministry's estimate says it is in the range of 20 to 25 for the whole world. Whereas, if you remember the speech of the Honorable Prime Minister, he mentioned in the Glasgow that 1 billion was something which was, 100 billion was something which was committed way back in Copenhagen in 2009. And at that time, and now a lot of time has been, has passed away, Now the requirement is of 1 trillion, not 1 billion, 100 billion, but it's $1 trillion every year. So we are very far from any of these commitments which are going to. And again, now because the West is under financial stress, there is a lot of inflation. We don't see that they are going to give any money to the countries in the East. And again, there are also differences in terms of whether this finance should go to the least developed countries or to the countries emerging economies like India, Brazil, South Africa, and so on. So there is, I think, very little to be received from the developed countries in this context. One more agenda which is going to be contentious this time will be the special circumstances of Africa, which has been introduced. What the Africa continent country of 54 countries wants that there should be a special status for Africa because this is most vulnerable, most poor part of the world. So there has to be special focus on this. This will be very difficult to be passed because there are other demands of other countries also, Latin America and others, which don't want any special status for one particular. It is just like within India that chief ministers come that give special status to one particular state. So it will be very difficult for this. I think just by concluding, I would like to say that the way forward is that there has to be an only solution is that India has to invest in research and innovation and develop its own technologies and rapidly invest in frontier technologies which are going to help in future. Unless and until we develop our own technologies, nobody is going to listen to us. Then what we are seeing is that the Western companies wants to profiteer from the disasters. We have suggested that the technologies which are developed for climate change has to be freely available, or if not freely available, at least with not much of profit to the developing countries, so that we have concrete examples for this. We have recently seen in the COVID that the vaccines developed by the companies were available free of cost to a whole world, and that's how we could supply vaccines to almost all countries and able to come out of this pandemic. So I think climate change is also of that nature that we have to develop technologies, we have to change our lifestyle and see that we don't profiteer from this disaster. Otherwise, these discussions will continue and we will continue to have rising emissions. Currently, it stands at around 52 billion tons every year. We need to reach at least 25 to 30 billion tons, reduce it to 25 to 30 billion tons by 2030 to have any chance of achieving 1.5 or 2 degrees. So I would like to conclude for a very long lecture on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Raghavji, and I think you have gave very detailed, I can say, the whatever the subject for today, and thank you so much. And Ajay Raghavji, our friend, and he is in the climate change division of the Ministry of Environment, Forest, Climate, and Government of India. He's and I think Congressman Raghav going to Indian delegation for this particularly the conference. And definitely after coming back, we can also have after a month or so your experience we can also share again with the one day this although some Sunday this conference. So thank you, Raghav. Now I'll request our friend Dr. M. Dwarkanathji. He is also looked the climate change issue in the Delhi and also in Pondicherry also. So I'll request Dr. M. Dwarkanathji to say on this subject today.
Thank you, Dr. Anil, and good afternoon to everyone. And though I joined little late, but our friend Mr. Ajay Raghav have put up very nicely and comprehensively. He has summarized the issues. That is very true. You know, the gone are the days of negotiation. Now this COP27 will be an agenda for reviewing whatever commitment that we have already made, number one. Number two, and not discussing, implementing it, whatever we have committed. It will be a thorough review of what we have committed since 2015 Paris Agreement. So there may be number of issues, but this will be a very crucial thing. In my perception and opinion, not much headway will be achieved in this also. Because now only we had BRIC countries asking for our share. Now we are seeing one more group of African countries and Latin America coming and asking for their share. So I don't think that not much way ahead will be any negotiation, concrete, actionable negotiations will be achieved in this forthcoming meeting. That is my gut feeling. Ajay Raghav may correct me if I am wrong, but that is very correct. Two things we need to emphasize. One is lifestyle changes. I remember for the last 1 decade in every COP, Indian government was advocating for lifestyle changes. If the West adopts our lifestyle changes, the emission automatically will come down by 40% or so. This is any rough calculation. 40% of emissions will come down if the Western countries adopt our kind of Asian country or African country of lifestyle changes. When that is not there, then it is very difficult. I think India has rightly put back the agenda of lifestyle changes, adapting the lifestyle changes, because US or anyway, European Union, they don't want to talk on lifestyle changes because it will be a negative thing to talk lifestyle changes to their public. It will affect their prospects on politics. Well, one girl, what is Creta something, she can come and talk as if they are only lifting the entire world. It is all like in a glass house. They are sitting and they are making comments. That and all is not enough. They have to come and visit Asia and India and Africa to see how we are living and how they are living. That is what fondly from 1992 India used to say in the COP. Luxury emissions cannot be and shall not be equated to survival emissions. So what we are having are survival emissions and what they are emitting are luxury emissions. And it will be very difficult to equate or find a middle path to these things. But only thing, our coastal, we have a very long coastal area in India. So, you know, any change in temperature is going to affect our human population, which are dependent on the coast, especially the fishermen. And also it is going to result in saltwater intrusion and also the climatic changes and also the alteration in the major rainfall pattern. So all these things is going to affect the yield of the crop also and also the fisheries yield. So this will affect the huge population that are dependent on seafood and also on agriculture and also livelihood problem for the fishermen. So we need to be conscious about this. And, you know, I think developing technology is one thing which Mr. Ajay Raghav mentioned. What we can think of doing is identify some 500 odd corporates and ask them to adopt all coastal villages. This can be a simple and workable solution within India for us to asking them under CSR or whatever let them call. Each corporate has to adopt a coastal village and then make all kind of adaptation and climate combating measures in that. both mitigation and adaptation measures. If we are able to convince the corporate and bring back them on board and ask them to adopt all our coastal villages, one of our major tackling problem of climate change in-house will be solved. Finances, they will arrange and they will do it. But external finances, because of COVID and also the war that is going on, external finances has committed, as Mr. Ajay Raghav told, it is not going to come, not this year and also for the next year. So I think this is my opening remarks, and then thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dwarkanath ji. I think you experienced both the UT, Pondicherry and Delhi, the political issues and political problems, because we have just also for Delhi, the State Action Plan on Climate Change, while preparing, we have all gone through this, jointly worked together on this State Action Plan on Climate Change for Delhi. So we have experienced whatever the real political problem and the action plan prepared by the government agencies. So these are very important issue. We have just 7-8 minutes to left, sir. So today we may continue, I think, maybe for the another session, maybe on the 6th of the November when this starts. Though Ajay Raghav may be there in Egypt, but we will continue. So I'll request now Dr. Ravinder Kumar from CRRI, if he can, from the transport point of view, the urgently required, particularly the agenda. This is already in by the presidency, Egypt presidency, but what his view on this particularly transport sector, Dr. Ravinder Kumar.
Good afternoon to all of you. अभी बहुत सारे हमारे स्पीकर्स ने बहुत अच्छी बातें कही, कार्बन बजटिंग की, फाइनेंसिंग की, और डेवलप कंट्री के जो कार्बन कंजम्पशंस हैं और हमारे हैं लाइफ स्टाइल की बात भी हुई है। साथ साथ जो एक मेजर इश्यूज है जो हम प्रेजेंट नहीं कर पाते हैं, जो हमारा डेवलपमेंट वर्क है, खासकर मैं आज आपको रोड सेक्टर की बात बताऊंगा कि रोड सेक्टर में कंस्ट्रक्शन हो रही है, ग्रीनफील्ड हाईवे बन रहे हैं, काफ़ी जगह अपग्रेडेशन हो रहा है। तो लोग ये सोचते हैं कि कंस्ट्रक्शन हो रहा है तो हमेशा नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट होगा, ऐसा नहीं है। कंस्ट्रक्शन होता है तो जैसे भी हम कंस्ट्रक्शन करते हैं तो नॉर्मली होता क्या है कि जो पहले की कंजेशन होती है, कंजेशन हम कम कर देते हैं। कंजेशन से फिर इम्पैक्ट क्या होता है कि अल्टीमेटली उससे जो फ्यूल कंजम्पशन है वो सेविंग होती है। फ्यूल कंजम्पशन से अल्टीमेट इम्पैक्ट क्या होता है कि जो जीएचजी इमिशंस हैं वो सेविंग होती है। तो ऐसे करके प्रॉपर तरीके से बहुत लोगों को पता नहीं है कि जो हम एक्टिविटी में इन्वॉल्व है रियली में उससे कुछ सेविंग भी हो रही है कि नहीं। अभी हाल ही में हम लोगों ने श्री तन्मय कुमार के अंदर में 12-15 रोड्स जो है एनएच के हमने लिए थे और उसमें करीब 500-600 किलोमीटर की स्टडी करी थी, जिसमें निकाला था कि कितने पेट्रोल सेव हो सकते हैं जो हाईवे बन रहे हैं, कितना उससे जीएचजी इमिशन सेव हो सकता है, कितना N2O इमिशन सेव हो सकता है, कितना CO2 इमिशन सेव हो सकता है। प्रोबेबली हाँ, बहुत सारी एक्टिविटीज हैं, जैसे लाइफ स्टाइल की बात करी सर ने। ऑफ कोर्स लाइफ स्टाइल हमारी ऑलरेडी इतनी लेस कार्बन कंजम्पशन पे है, लेकिन उसकी कैलकुलेशन नहीं है हमारे पास। हमारे पास कोई इस तरह का मेथड नहीं है कि हम उसको कैलकुलेट करके बताएं। इवन ट्रांसपोर्ट सेक्टर में भी जैसे आप देखेंगे हाउस होल्ड जो अभी सर्वे हुआ है उसमें साइकिलिस्ट की संख्या और टू व्हीलर की संख्या बहुत ज़्यादा है। मतलब वो ओवरऑल मॉडल शेयर में अगर साइकिलिस्ट ज़्यादा है, साइकिल घर में अगर ज़्यादा है, तो इट सोच कि कहीं ना कहीं हम इनडायरेक्टली कार्बन को हम लेस कंज्यूम कर रहे हैं, लेकिन हमारे पास इस तरह की मतलब प्रॉपर मेथडोलॉजी नहीं है जहां हम उसको क्लेम कर सकें, बता सकें कि नहीं हमने इस कंट्री में बिकॉज ऑफ आवर लाइफ स्टाइल और बिकॉज ऑफ यूजिंग दिस ट्रांसपोर्ट वी हैव सेव सो मच ऑफ डीजल, वी हैव सो मच ऑफ पेट्रोल। तो हम लोग उसकी वैल्यू देते नहीं है। जो आज के डेट में जो डेवलप कंट्री में प्रॉब्लम आई है वो हाईली कंजम्पशन ऑफ कार्बन के चलते ही आई है। लेकिन अगर हम अपने लाइफ स्टाइल को प्रॉपर, अगर पता नहीं, मुझे नहीं मालूम, यहाँ पे तो इन्वायरमेंट, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ इन्वायरमेंट से बैठे हैं, कि कैसे लाइफ स्टाइल जो हमारी है उस पर कोई कैलकुलेटर बना है क्या, जिससे हम बता सकें कि ओवरऑल हम कितना कार्बन सेव कर रहे हैं। प्रोबेबली मुझे पता नहीं है, अगर होगा तो और अच्छी बात है, ताकि ये आने वाले समय में, जैसे ये बड़े लेवल की जो मीटिंग होती है जहाँ पे रिव्यू होता है, डिसीजन होते हैं, तो वहाँ पे हम बता तो सके कि आप अभी इस चीज को कर रहे हैं, हमने तो 100 साल पहले से हम इस चीज को अडॉप्ट करके रखे हुए हैं।
आई थिंक डॉक्टर रविंदर, आपने बहुत अच्छा पॉइंट बताया। 2016 में ही, आई थिंक 2015 में MOEF ने और UNEP ने दोनों मिला के लाइफस्टाइल, लो कार्बन लाइफस्टाइल करके एक किताब भी है, आज भी वो उनका वेबसाइट में अवेलेबल है। उसमें जो जो एक्टिविटीज आप सोच सकते हैं वो पूरा एक्टिविटीज, और उसी में 3-4 ऑप्शन है। वो हर ऑप्शन करने में कितना GHG एमिशंस कम कर रहे हैं, कितना ट्री, उसी की वजह से अगर वो बिजनेस एज यूजुअल सिनेरियो होता है उसमें अगर हो जाता है तो कितना ट्रीज आपको प्लांट करना पड़ता है। ये पूरा का पूरा अच्छा कैलकुलेशन है। मैं वो बुकलेट का ग्रुप में डाल दूंगा।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल,
ये ऑलरेडी है, ये नेशनली और इंटरनेशनली सबको पता है। Probably
पता है कि सर
you
क्या
might have
इसको
you might have missed it, but even हम जब दिल्ली में भी थे, जब पौंडीचेरी में भी थे, we have popularized that booklet and the content of the booklet even in the schools through eco clubs also.
No, we have produced three publications, as just now mentioned. I was involved in all three of them. The first one was a Parampara document, which was released by the Honorable Prime Minister in the Paris Agreement during the Paris 2015. Then in 16, we have released a book on the low carbon lifestyles, which also has a calculator in terms of what are the carbon footprints or different actions which you take. Then there was also a brochure which gives a comparison of the activities in terms of per capita emissions and also different, for example, energy consumption by India or US, or meat consumption, food wastage. All those things are captured in one of the brochures. Then the fourth thing which we brought out was a summary into which is basically talks about low carbon lifestyle, as well as the modern concepts which we are following. So it's a samanvay of the old traditions and the new things which are coming up. All these four things are available on the MOEFCC's website. If you go there, you will find these are available as PDF and can be used by any person. So what you mentioned was already there.
Yes,
Thank you, Raghav ji. I think yes, Ravinder ji, you can add.
एक क्वेश्चन था मेरा सर, कि ऑलरेडी अगर इस तरह की चीजें हैं तो क्या हम इस चीजों को इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे जो इस तरह के जो अभी कन्वेंशन हो रहे हैं उसमें रख पा रहे हैं क्या, कि हमारी लाइफ स्टाइल के चलते कोई क्वांटिफिकेशन है क्या, ये हम कितने,
ये सारे जितने भी डॉक्यूमेंट्स मैंने बताए, ये चारों के चारों वर रिलीज्ड at COP only. All of them were released at the COP by the minister or the prime minister, and they were distributed. These are things which everybody knows, they also know about it, but it is conveniently ignored because it is basically US very well has very clearly says, US presidents have said that our lifestyles are not for discussion. That is what they want. What they say that US economy prospers if you have more consumption. That is what their whole economic model is. If we don't consume, then their economy is not prospering. So that is what their mindset is. So unless and until you change that, it will be very difficult to reduce the emissions. Even though the US emissions are supposed to reduce drastically, these emissions are not reducing. They are almost same, and this is same because they have outsourced all manufacturing to China and other countries. So what they used to consume 30 years back, they are even consuming more. But these emissions are not coming in the US inventory because they are produced somewhere else. So basically it is the consumption not producing themselves, but taking it from somewhere else. So, so that root cause has to be solved. And they have outsourced all manufacturing to other developing countries. So they still continue to enjoy the same level of consumption and comfort. So that is the problem. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Raghu. I think the methodology should be, I mean, instead of the maybe the producing, the count, they should be counted as should be the consumption that will be. I think that need to be discussed maybe the Raghuji and the Indian delegation may particularly, I don't know what will be this we discuss in this partnership. So thank you, everybody. I think our some of the friends we could not speak today, particularly Neeraj and Khandelwalji and other Rajiv Sharma and Ankit Sethi and some of the friends we could not, I mean, take up today because of the already 1 o'clock, and I don't want to go in between your lunch and our conference. So definitely very interesting, and we were discussing that. So I think we'll continue on the next Sunday on 6th. That is the day of start of this conference. So our discussion will continue with our more experts. Some experts may not be joined today. So I think आज हमने जो discuss किया, thanking to all the experts for their views, and definitely ये forum पर discussion से हमारा particularly हम different government को तो ठीक है, but we can also create awareness from on our level, and this particularly this recording is good in the YouTube page of Dr. K.K. Agrawal, and this is also creating a lot of awareness on that. So we'll continue our discussion, and our whatever the contribution we can make as a individual level, as a whatever level, we'll continue that. So with this, thanking to all the experts and thanking to all the viewers, we'll close our session today, and we'll continue on next Sunday that the same topic, and we will continue discussion. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.